The rain hammered against the windows of Rosie's diner with relentless fury, each droplet racing down the glass like tiny rivers seeking the pavement below. It was one of those October evenings in Brooklyn when the sky turned bruised purple just after sunset, and the cold crept through even the thickest jacket. Inside the diner, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly, casting their familiar yellow glow over the red vinyl booths and black and white checkered floor that had seen better decades. Emma Clark moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her dark brown hair pulled back in a ponytail that swayed with each step. At 28, she had the kind of face that people instinctively trusted, warm hazel eyes, a genuine smile that reached those eyes even when she was exhausted, and an air of quiet competence that made customers feel at ease. Tonight, though, her smile was more strained than usual. "More coffee, Mr. Peterson?" she asked the elderly man sitting alone in booth 7, his weathered hands wrapped around a half-empty cup. "You're an angel, Emma," he replied, his voice rough with age and too many years of smoking. "Don't know what I'd do without this place. Gets lonely in that apartment." Emma poured the steaming liquid carefully, her mind only half present. "You're never alone here, Mr. Peterson. You know that." As she moved back toward the counter, she caught her reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, reminders of another sleepless night spent at Brooklyn Methodist Hospital, sitting beside her younger brother Danny's bed. 23 years old, and he was fighting an illness that was draining both his strength and Emma's savings at an alarming rate. The medical bills piled up faster than she could count them, let alone pay them. "Emma, honey, you okay?" Rosie's voice cut through her thoughts. The diner's owner, a robust woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and hands that had flipped a million burgers, was watching her with concern from behind the counter. "I'm fine, Rosie. Just tired." "You're always tired, baby. You work yourself to the bone." Rosie wiped down the counter with a practiced motion, her gold bracelets jangling. "When was the last time you had a day off?" "Days off are for people with savings accounts." Emma tried to joke, but it came out flat. The diner was unusually quiet for a Tuesday evening. The weather had kept most people home, and only a handful of customers dotted the space. Mr. Peterson in his booth, a young couple sharing French fries in the corner, and 2 truck drivers at the counter working through slices of Rosie's famous apple pie. The kitchen was winding down, the sizzle of the grill replaced by the sound of Miguel, the cook, humming along to the oldies station playing from the radio. Emma glanced at the clock mounted above the pie display. 9:47, just over 2 hours until closing. Then she could catch the subway home, grab maybe 5 hours of sleep before her morning shift at the hospital cafeteria. It wasn't the nursing career she'd dreamed of, but those dreams had been put on hold when Danny got sick. Dreams didn't pay for chemotherapy. The bell above the entrance chimed, announcing a new customer despite the downpour outside. Emma turned automatically, her server's smile ready, but the greeting died on her lips. A man stumbled through the door, bringing with him a gust of cold wind and rain. But it wasn't the weather that made Emma freeze. It was the way he moved, half staggering, one hand pressed against the left side of his neck. Even from across the diner, she could see the dark stain spreading between his fingers. Blood. "Oh my God," the young woman in the corner booth gasped, her fork clattering onto her plate. The man took 3 more unsteady steps before his knees buckled. Emma's training from her incomplete nursing degree kicked in before conscious thought could stop her. She was moving, weaving between tables, reaching him just as he started to collapse. "I've got you," she said firmly, catching him under the arm and guiding him toward the nearest booth. He was heavy, solid muscle beneath the rain-soaked suit jacket, but adrenaline gave her strength. "Someone call 911. "No." The word came out harsh, desperate. The man's eyes, startlingly blue even in distress, locked onto hers. "No police. No ambulance. Please. Sir, you're injured. You need medical attention. Please." His grip on her wrist was surprisingly strong, despite his obvious weakness. "I'm begging you." Up close, Emma could see more details. He was in his late 30s, maybe 40, with dark hair plastered to his forehead from the rain. His face was angular, handsome in a sharp-edged way, but currently pale with shock. The suit he wore was expensive. She'd worked enough upscale events to recognize quality tailoring, but it was torn and stained. The injury on his neck was bleeding steadily, crimson seeping through his fingers. "Rosie, get the first aid kit," Emma called over her shoulder, then focused back on the man. "What happened?" "Wrong place, wrong time," he managed, his voice tight with pain. Got jumped. 3 guys. Took my wallet. The lie was smooth, practiced, but his eyes told a different story. Emma had grown up in Brooklyn. She knew when someone wasn't telling the whole truth, but she also knew a person in genuine danger when she saw one. And whatever had happened to this man, the fear in his eyes, was real. "Miguel, call the police," Rosie ordered from behind the counter, already dialing. "No." The man tried to stand, panic flashing across his features. "Please, I just need—" He swayed dangerously. Emma made a split-second decision. "Rosie, wait. Just give me a minute." She looked into the stranger's eyes, seeing desperation there that matched her own when she thought about Danny's bills. "Sir, if you don't want the police involved, that's your business. But you're going to bleed out if we don't stop that bleeding. Let me help you." "Why?" he asked, the single word heavy with suspicion, and something else. Surprise, maybe, that someone would offer help without demanding answers first. "Because that's what people do," Emma said simply. "They help each other." For a long moment he just stared at her. Then slowly he nodded. Rosie arrived with the first aid kit, her face a mask of worry. "Emma, baby, I don't know about this." "It's okay." Emma was already opening the kit, pulling out gauze and antiseptic. "Mr. Peterson, could you and everyone else maybe give us some privacy? Go ahead and finish your meals, but just in the back booths?" The elderly man nodded slowly, gathering his coffee cup. The other customers followed suit, sensing the gravity of the situation. Emma was grateful for their discretion, and for the fact that Brooklyn locals knew when not to ask questions. "I need to see the wound," Emma told the stranger, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Move your hand." He hesitated, then slowly lowered his hand from his neck. Emma's breath caught. The wound was deep, a clean slice that had probably been made by something very sharp. It had narrowly missed the carotid artery, but it was close enough that every heartbeat sent more blood flowing down his neck and soaking into his collar. "This is serious," she said quietly. "You really should go to a hospital." "Can't." Just one word, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. Emma grabbed several gauze pads and pressed them firmly against the wound. The man winced but didn't pull away. "Hold these. Pressure is the most important thing right now." As he complied, Emma took stock of her supplies. The first aid kit was basic, meant for minor cuts and burns, not injuries like this. She needed to stop the bleeding, but the wound was in a location that made standard bandaging difficult. The angle was awkward, and simple pressure wasn't going to be enough for long. Her mind raced through her medical training. In emergency situations, when traditional methods aren't available, there were unconventional techniques. She'd read about them, heard stories from paramedics about field medicine during disasters. One technique in particular came to mind, one that was rarely used outside of extreme circumstances. "I have an idea," she said slowly, "but you're going to have to trust me. And it's unconventional." The man's blue eyes met hers, reading something in her expression. "What do you need me to do?" "Lie back on the booth bench. Turn your head to the side." As he complied, Emma positioned herself at the edge of the booth. "This is going to sound strange, but I need to create a seal over the wound. Direct, sustained pressure with minimal air exposure. It's a technique sometimes used in field medicine when you don't have proper supplies." "Do it," he said without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." Emma took a breath to steady herself, then leaned in. She cleaned the area as quickly as possible with antiseptic wipes, then positioned herself over the wound. This was clinical, she told herself. Medical. She'd done more intimate procedures during her nursing rotations, but as she pressed her lips to the side of his neck, creating a seal over the injury, she couldn't help but be aware of how strange this must look. The technique worked by creating suction and sustained pressure, her lips forming a barrier that allowed her to apply constant, even force while keeping contaminants out. She could feel his pulse against her mouth, fast but strong. The metallic taste of blood touched her tongue, but she maintained the seal, counting seconds in her head. The man lay perfectly still beneath her, his breathing controlled despite what must have been considerable discomfort. After 30 seconds, she carefully pulled back to check the wound. The bleeding had slowed significantly. She repeated the process, this time for a full minute, then checked again. "It's working," she murmured, grabbing fresh gauze. "The bleeding's mostly stopped. I can bandage it now." As she worked, wrapping gauze around his neck and securing it with medical tape, she became aware of other details. His cologne, expensive, with notes of cedar and something darker. The calluses on his hands, surprising on someone wearing such an expensive suit. the way his eyes tracked every movement in the diner, even while injured, as if constantly assessing threats. "There," Emma said finally, sitting back to examine her work. "That should hold, but you really need to see a doctor. If that wound gets infected—" "I know people," he interrupted quietly. "Medical professionals who are discreet. I'll see them tomorrow. Promise me." Emma surprised herself with the intensity in her voice. "Because if you die from some easily preventable infection after I just saved your life, I'm going to be really annoyed." A ghost of a smile crossed his face, the first real expression she'd seen there. "I promise." "Good." Emma started cleaning up the blood-stained gauze, her hands finally beginning to shake now that the crisis had passed. "Can I at least get you some water? Hot coffee?" "Coffee. Black. Please." He started to sit up, moving more carefully now. Emma headed to the counter, aware of Rosie's worried gaze following her. "Is he okay?" the older woman whispered. "For now. Rosie, I know this is weird, but you've got a good heart, baby, and you couldn't let someone bleed out in my diner. I get it." Rosie poured the coffee herself, her movements gentle. "But Emma, honey, be careful. That man, he's not what he seems." "I know." Emma accepted the coffee cup, then grabbed a slice of pie. Nobody gets hurt like that from a simple mugging. When she returned to the booth, the stranger was sitting upright, his color already better. He'd removed his suit jacket, revealing a white shirt that had once been crisp but was now ruined with bloodstains. As Emma set down the coffee and pie, she noticed something else, a glimpse of what looked like a tattoo on his forearm, partially hidden by his rolled-up sleeve. "On the house," Emma said, sliding the pie across the table. "You need the sugar, your body's in shock." "Thank you." He picked up the coffee, taking a long drink despite the heat. "And thank you for what you did. That was quick thinking. I was pre-nursing before." Emma trailed off, not wanting to explain her unfinished degree. "Anyway, it's fine, I'm just glad it worked." They sat in awkward silence for a moment, the rain still drumming against the windows. The other customers had returned to their meals, though Emma could feel their curious glances. Mr. Peterson kept looking over with grandfatherly concern. "What's your name?" the stranger asked suddenly. "Emma. Emma Clark." "Emma." He repeated it slowly, as if committing it to memory. He hesitated, and Emma saw the calculation in his eyes. "Vincent. My name is Vincent." Another lie, probably. Or maybe just a partial truth. Emma was too tired to care. "Well, Vincent, you should probably rest for a while before you head back out into that weather. You've lost blood and the shock will make you weak for a bit." "I can't stay long." But even as he said it, his eyes were drooping with exhaustion. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind the brutal reality of his injury. "Just close your eyes for a few minutes," Emma urged. "I'll keep an eye on things." She expected him to argue, but instead he nodded slowly. A few minutes. His eyes closed, and within moments his breathing had deepened into something approaching sleep. Emma watched him for a long moment. This dangerous stranger who'd stumbled into her life. Even in sleep, there was tension in his jaw, a wariness that didn't fully fade. Whatever his story was, it was complicated and probably illegal. She should be afraid. She should have called the police regardless of his protests. But something about the genuine fear she'd seen in his eyes when he'd begged her not to call for help had resonated with her own desperation. She understood what it meant to be trapped by circumstances, to need help, but be unable to ask for it through proper channels. "You're too soft-hearted for your own good, Emma Clark," she whispered to herself, then stood to check on her other customers. The next hour passed in a strange sort of limbo. Vincent slept, or at least pretended to, while Emma finished her shift. Rosie eventually started ushering out the remaining customers, announcing an early closing due to the weather. Miguel cleaned the kitchen and left through the back door with a worried look at the sleeping stranger. Mr. Peterson lingered, clearly reluctant to leave Emma alone. "It's okay," Emma assured him. "You head home before the subway stops running. You call me if you need anything," the elderly man insisted, squeezing her hand. "Anything at all." By 11 o'clock, only Emma, Rosie, and Vincent remained in the diner. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, and the street outside was empty save for the occasional taxi splashing through puddles. "Emma, baby, I have to close up," Rosie said gently, "and I don't feel right leaving you here with him." "I know." Emma looked at Vincent, still motionless in the booth. "I'll wake him up, make sure he can walk, and send him on his way." But when she approached the booth and gently shook Vincent's shoulder, his eyes flew open with alarming speed, and the look in them was sharp, calculating, dangerous. For a split second, Emma saw the real man beneath the injured stranger act. Then recognition softened his features. "Sorry," he said, his voice rough, force of habit. "It's time to close," Emma said, taking a step back. "How are you feeling?" Vincent sat up slowly, testing his body. "Better." The rest helped. He touched the bandage on his neck gingerly. "You do good work." "Thanks, I think." Emma crossed her arms, suddenly aware of how alone they were. "Do you have somewhere to go, someone to call?" "I'll manage." He stood, steadier now, and reached into his pocket. Then his expression changed, frustration and worry crossing his features. "My wallet really is gone. They took everything." "The people who hurt you?" "Yes." He looked at her directly. "I know you don't believe I was mugged, Emma, and you're right to be skeptical, but I'm not going to lie and say I'm some innocent victim. I'm not. I appreciate that you helped me anyway." The honesty surprised her. Everyone deserves help when they're hurt. That's basic humanity. Not in my world. The words were quiet, almost sad. In my world, weakness gets you taken advantage of. Kindness is exploited. That sounds like a terrible world. It is. He picked up his ruined jacket. "But it's the only one I've got." Emma watched as he moved toward the door, still slightly unsteady but determined. Something made her call out, "Vincent, wait." He turned, eyebrows raised. She grabbed a paper bag from behind the counter and quickly filled it with items from the kitchen. Sandwiches, a bottle of water, packets of pain relievers from the first aid kit. "Take this. You need to keep your strength up while you heal." Vincent stared at the bag she offered, then at her face, as if trying to solve a particularly complex puzzle. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone needs to show you that kindness isn't always a weakness." Emma pressed the bag into his hands. "And because I can't in good conscience let you walk out of here without at least some supplies." For a long moment, Vincent just stood there, holding the bag, something unreadable in his expression. Then he reached up and carefully removed the expensive watch from his wrist. "Here, take this." "I can't, please." He placed the watch in her hand, closing her fingers around it. "It's worth at least a few thousand. Sell it. I know you need money. I saw your reaction when I mentioned medical professionals. You've got someone sick, someone you're taking care of. Use this to help them." Emma looked down at the heavy watch. Rolex, she realized. Probably worth far more than a few thousand. "I can't take this. You already saved my life. This is the least I can do." His fingers, warm despite the cool night, pressed gently against hers. "Besides, I have others." Before Emma could protest further, he released her hand and moved to the door. He paused there, looking back one more time. "Emma Clark, I won't forget what you did tonight." Then he was gone, stepping out into the drizzle and disappearing into the shadows of Fifth Avenue, like he'd never been there at all. Emma stood frozen, staring at the watch in her palm. The weight of it felt like a promise and a threat all at once. "Emma?" Rosie appeared from the back room, her coat already on. "Did he leave?" "Yeah." Emma slipped the watch into her pocket, not ready to explain it yet. "Yeah, he's gone." "Good. Come on, let me drive you home. It's too late for the subway." As they locked up the diner and walked to Rosie's old sedan, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just changed in some fundamental way. The rain had stopped, leaving the Brooklyn streets slick and shining under the streetlights. Somewhere out there, Vincent was disappearing back into whatever dark world he'd emerged from. But he'd left her with a gift worth thousands of dollars. And more than that, he'd left her with questions. Who was he really? What had happened to him? And why did she have the unsettling feeling that she hadn't seen the last of him? The watch sat in Emma's apartment like a ticking time bomb, which was ironic, considering it was actually worth more than 3 months of her rent. She'd placed it in her sock drawer, hiding it beneath layers of clothes as if that would somehow make the decision about what to do with it easier. Keep it? Sell it? Report it as found property? Every option felt wrong in different ways. "You're overthinking this," Danny said from his position on the worn couch. Her younger brother looked better than he had in weeks. The latest round of treatment was working, giving color back to his cheeks and energy back to his eyes. "Some rich guy gave you an expensive watch. Sell it. Pay some bills. It's not that complicated." "It feels complicated," Emma argued, stirring the soup on the stove. Their apartment was small, a one-bedroom in a building that had seen better decades, but it was home. "I don't know anything about him. What if the watch is stolen? What if he's some kind of criminal?" Danny supplied helpfully. "Emma, anyone who shows up bleeding at midnight and begs you not to call the cops is probably involved in something illegal. That doesn't mean his money isn't good. When did you become so cynical? When I got sick and learned that medical care in this country is basically legal extortion. Danny smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm not being cynical, Em. I'm being realistic. You worked a miracle on that guy and he paid you for it. Take the win. Emma knew he was right. The logical part of her brain understood that selling the watch could solve so many immediate problems. But the part of her that had looked into Vincent's eyes and seen genuine gratitude, and yes, danger, couldn't quite shake the feeling that accepting the watch meant accepting something more. A connection, a debt, an acknowledgement that she'd stepped into a world she didn't understand. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rosie. Black SUV outside the diner again. Same one from yesterday. Emma, I'm worried. Emma's stomach dropped. She'd noticed the vehicle too. Sleek, expensive, with tinted windows that revealed nothing. It had been parked across from Rosie's diner for 3 days now, ever since the night Vincent had stumbled through the door. Danny, I have to go to work. Your shift doesn't start for 2 hours. I know, but Rosie needs me. Emma was already grabbing her jacket, her mind racing. There's soup on the stove. Let it simmer for another 10 minutes, then turn it off. Emma, what's going on? She paused at the door, looking at her brother's worried face. Danny was the only family she had left, the only person in the world she'd do absolutely anything for. Lying to him felt wrong, but so did dragging him into whatever was happening. Nothing, she said finally. Just diner drama. I'll be back in a few hours. The subway ride to Brooklyn Heights felt longer than usual. Emma kept checking her phone, but Rosie didn't send any more messages. The silence felt ominous. When she emerged from the subway station, the autumn air had turned sharp and cold. November was announcing its arrival with frost on the windows of parked cars and breath that misted in the air. Emma pulled her jacket tighter and walked quickly toward the diner. There it was, the black SUV, parked in the same spot as before. As Emma approached, she could see someone sitting in the driver's seat, but the tinted windows made it impossible to identify them. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Don't be stupid, she told herself. Go inside, stay safe. This isn't your problem. But as she reached for the diner door, the SUV's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, well-dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. He was middle-aged with silver threading through his dark hair and the kind of face that had seen too much of life's ugly side. But his expression was polite, almost gentle. Miss Clark? He called out. Emma Clark? Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet stayed planted. Who's asking? My name is Marcus. He kept his distance, hands visible and empty. I work for someone you recently helped. He asked me to check on you, make sure you were safe. Vincent sent you. The name slipped out before Emma could stop it. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe, or recognition. Mr. Romano wanted to ensure you hadn't experienced any difficulties since your encounter. Mr. Romano. So Vincent was at least partially a real name. Emma filed that information away. I'm fine. Tell him thank you for checking, but it's not necessary. I'm afraid I must disagree. Marcus took a step closer and Emma tensed, but his posture remained non-threatening. When my employer takes an interest in someone's welfare, it becomes necessary. There are people who would use that interest to their advantage. I don't understand. You helped someone important, Miss Clark. That makes you potentially valuable to other interested parties. Marcus's voice was calm, matter of fact. I'm here to ensure your safety. Nothing more. That's stalking. That's protection. There's a difference. He pulled a card from his pocket and held it out. This has a phone number on it. If you notice anything unusual, anyone asking questions about you, anyone following you, anything that makes you uncomfortable, you call this number immediately. Emma didn't take the card. I don't need protection. I just helped an injured person. That's all. Miss Clark, I respect your independence, but please understand, the world my employer operates in doesn't forgive simple acts of kindness. It sees them as opportunities. Marcus placed the card on the diner's windowsill when Emma refused to take it directly. Keep the card, for your own sake. He turned to leave, then paused. And Miss Clark, Mr. Romano asked me to tell you something. He said to tell you that the gift he gave you is yours with no strings attached. Sell it, keep it, throw it in the Hudson. It's your choice. He expects nothing in return except that you stay safe. Before Emma could respond, Marcus had returned to the SUV and driven away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk with more questions than answers. Inside the diner, Rosie was waiting with a cup of coffee and worry etched into every line of her face. What did he want? I'm not entirely sure. Emma collapsed onto a stool, her legs suddenly weak. But I think I just got pulled into something way over my head. Then pull yourself back out, Rosie said firmly. Whatever that man is involved in, it's not your problem. I know, you're right. Emma wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup. I'll sell the watch, pay Danny's bills, and forget any of this ever happened. But even as she said it, Emma knew it wasn't true, because tucked in her pocket was the card Marcus had left on the windowsill. She'd picked it up without even realizing it, and on the back, in elegant handwriting, was a simple message. If you need anything, call V. The bell above the diner door chimed, and Emma looked up automatically. Her breath caught. Vincent stood in the doorway, looking nothing like the bloodied, desperate man from 3 nights ago. He was wearing a different suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and his dark hair was styled back from his face. The bandage on his neck was gone, replaced by what looked like professional medical strips barely visible above his collar. He looked powerful, dangerous, and completely in control, and he was looking directly at Emma with an intensity that made her feel like the only person in the world. Hi, he said simply. We need to talk. Vincent Romano stood in the doorway of Rosie's diner like he owned the place, not with arrogance, but with the quiet confidence of someone who'd learned to command any space he entered. The afternoon light filtering through the windows caught the sharp angles of his face, and Emma found herself momentarily unable to move, coffee pot frozen in her hand. We need to talk, he'd said, and those 4 words seemed to fill the entire diner. Rosie appeared at Emma's shoulder, her protective instincts immediately activated. Emma's working. If you want to talk, you can wait until her shift ends. Or better yet, you can leave your number and she'll call you if she feels like it. A small smile tugged at Vincent's lips. Appreciation maybe for Rosie's fierce loyalty. I respect that, but this concerns Miss Clark's safety, and I'd prefer not to discuss it in public. His eyes moved to Emma. Please, just 10 minutes of your time. Emma should have said no. Every rational thought in her head screamed that getting further involved with this man was a terrible idea. But there was something in his expression, not threat, but genuine concern, that made her pause. Rosie, can you cover my tables for a few minutes? Emma, it's okay, really. Emma untied her apron and set it on the counter. We'll be right outside where you can see us through the window. Vincent nodded his agreement and held the door open for her. As Emma stepped out into the crisp November air, she was acutely aware of how different this moment was from their first meeting. Then he'd been vulnerable, bleeding, desperate. Now he radiated control and purpose. You look better, Emma said, gesturing to his neck. The wound healed, thanks to your quick thinking. Vincent touched the spot unconsciously. I had my personal physician look at it. He was impressed with your field work. Said you probably saved my life. I'm glad it worked out. Emma crossed her arms, partly from the cold, partly as a defensive posture. Look, I appreciate you checking on me, and thanks for the watch, which I haven't sold yet, by the way. But I don't need a bodyguard following me around. I'm not involved in whatever you're involved in. That's where you're wrong. Vincent's expression grew serious. The moment you helped me, you became involved. Not by choice, but by circumstance. And I need you to understand the reality of that situation. What reality? Vincent glanced around the street, a casual movement that Emma recognized as vigilance. There are people who would very much like to know where I was 3 nights ago. People who would hurt anyone connected to me to get information. Your act of kindness painted a target on your back, Emma, and I can't in good conscience ignore that. Fear prickled down Emma's spine. Are you saying I'm in danger? I'm saying you could be. That's why I have Marcus watching the diner. He's not there to intimidate you. He's there to make sure no one else takes an interest in you. Vincent's voice softened. I know this isn't fair. You did a good thing, and you shouldn't have to suffer consequences for it. But I deal in realities, not fairness. Emma processed this, her mind racing. So what do you want from me? I want you to be aware, to be careful. And I want you to know that if anything seems wrong, if anyone approaches you asking questions, if you feel like you're being followed, you can call me. He pulled a card from his jacket pocket, identical to the one Marcus had left. Day or night, I'll answer. You're asking me to trust you, but I don't even know who you really are. Emma took the card but didn't look at it. Vincent Romano. Is that even your real name? It is. Though I imagine if you Google it, you'll find some things that will make you wish you'd never met me. His honesty was disarming. I'm not a good man, Emma. I won't pretend to be. But I am a man who pays his debts and protects what's his. I'm not yours to protect. No, you're not. But you're someone who saved my life, and in my world, that creates an obligation I take very seriously. Vincent studied her face, those blue eyes reading her more carefully than anyone had in a long time. You think I'm dangerous, you're right. You think you should walk away, you're also right. But you helped me anyway, and that tells me something about who you are. What does it tell you? That you're either very brave or very foolish. I haven't decided which yet. The corner of his mouth lifted in something that might have been a smile. Either way, it's admirable. Despite herself, Emma felt a spark of something, not quite attraction, but interest. This man was a puzzle, layers of danger and courtesy, threat and protection. I need to get back to work. Of course. Vincent stepped back, giving her space. But Emma, one more thing. The watch. Sell it if you need to. But if you decide to keep it, there's a jeweler on Lexington Avenue. Goldstein & Sons. Tell them you're a friend of mine. They'll size it for you properly. Why would I keep it? It's worth thousands of dollars. Because sometimes the value of something isn't measured in money. Vincent held her gaze for a moment longer. Thank you again. For everything. He turned to leave. But Emma found herself calling out, Wait, you said we needed to talk about my safety. You warned me. Is that it? Is that all you came to say? Vincent paused, his back still to her. No, I also came to see if you were real. Real? He turned back, and for the first time, Emma saw something vulnerable in his expression. I spend my days surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, power, protection, favors, everyone has an angle. But you helped a bleeding stranger with no expectation of reward. In my experience, people like that don't exist. I needed to see if I'd imagined your kindness or if it was genuine. And you're real. He said it with something like wonder, which makes you either the most dangerous person I've met in years, or the safest. I'm still trying to figure out which. Then he was gone, climbing into a sleek black car that Emma hadn't noticed before, different from Marcus's SUV, this one even more expensive looking. She watched it pull away from the curb and disappear into traffic, leaving her standing on the sidewalk with a business card and more questions than ever. Inside the diner, Rosie was waiting with crossed arms and a concerned frown. You okay, baby? I don't know, Emma admitted. I honestly don't know. For the rest of her shift, Emma operated on autopilot. She poured coffee, took orders, delivered plates of Rosie's famous meatloaf, and smiled at customers, all while her mind spun through the implications of Vincent's words. You're in danger. People who would hurt anyone connected to me. You can call me day or night. It should have been terrifying. It was terrifying. But underneath the fear was something else. A strange sense of being seen, really seen, by someone who understood what it meant to operate in the shadows of necessity, rather than the light of choice. Emma understood shadows. She'd been living in them since Danny got sick, working 3 jobs, making impossible decisions about which bills to pay first, watching her dreams of becoming a nurse fade into the background of survival. She'd become invisible in her own life, just another tired waitress in a city full of them. But Vincent had looked at her like she mattered, like her choice to help him had been significant. And maybe that was the real danger. Not the threat of his enemies, but the temptation to feel important to someone who moved through the world with such purpose. Earth to Emma, a voice broke through her thoughts. She looked up to find Derek, one of the evening regulars, waving a hand in front of her face. I asked for a refill 5 minutes ago. Sorry, Derek, lost in thought. Emma grabbed the coffee pot and filled his cup, noticing her hands were shaking slightly. When her shift finally ended at 7, Emma found Marcus waiting outside, leaning against his SUV with the casual alertness of professional security. Miss Clark, he greeted her. I'll drive you home. That's not necessary. Mr. Romano would prefer it. The subway at this hour is how I get home every night. Emma interrupted, frustrated. Look, I appreciate the concern, but I can't have a bodyguard. I have a life, a brother, a routine. People will ask questions. Marcus considered this. Then I'll follow at a distance. You won't know I'm there, but you will be there. Yes. There was no point arguing with someone who had clearly received non-negotiable orders. Emma sighed. Fine, but stay back. And if my brother asks questions, I'm telling him you're just a neighborhood watch volunteer or something. Understood. The subway ride home felt surreal with the knowledge that Marcus was somewhere nearby, watching. Emma kept catching herself looking for him, but if he was there, he was invisible. Professional. Danny was awake when she got home, sprawled on the couch watching a cooking show, his latest obsession since he couldn't eat most foods during treatment. He looked up with a smile that dimmed when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, just a long day." Emma dropped her bag and headed for the kitchen. "Did you eat?" "Emma, I can tell when you're lying. We've lived together for 23 years. Danny muted the TV and sat up. "Is this about that guy? The one who gave you the watch?" Emma paused, her hand on the refrigerator door. She'd never been good at hiding things from her brother. "He came to the diner today. And he's complicated." Emma pulled out leftovers and started reheating them, needing something to do with her hands. "He's involved in something, not good, and he thinks that because I helped him, I might be in danger from his enemies." Danny was quiet for a moment. "Is he right?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. So what are you going to do?" Emma thought about the card in her pocket, the watch in her drawer, the man with blue eyes who'd looked at her like she was something precious and rare. "I'm going to sell the watch, use the money for your treatment, and forget this ever happened." But what? "Come on, Em. There's always a but with you." Danny smiled knowingly. "You've got that look you get when you're trying to talk yourself out of something you actually want to do." "I don't want to get involved with a criminal, Danny. I'm not that person. No, you're the person who works herself to exhaustion taking care of me. The person who gave up her dreams because I got sick. The person who never does anything for herself." Danny's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not saying you should date a mobster or whatever he is. But Emma, when was the last time someone looked out for you instead of the other way around? That's not fair. It's completely fair. You've been my protector my whole life. Maybe it's okay to let someone protect you for once." Emma wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. Because Danny was right. She couldn't remember the last time someone had worried about her safety, her well-being, her anything. She'd become so accustomed to being the caretaker that being cared for felt foreign and slightly uncomfortable. "It's complicated," she repeated weakly. "The best things usually are." 3 days passed. Emma went to work, came home, visited Danny at the hospital for his treatments, and tried not to think about Vincent Romano. She succeeded approximately none of the time. Marcus remained a constant, invisible presence. She never saw him, but she felt safer knowing he was there, which annoyed her because she didn't want to feel dependent on Vincent's protection. The watch remained in her drawer. She'd looked up the jeweler on Lexington Avenue. Goldstein & Sons was a legitimate business, high-end, the kind of place where watches started at 5 figures, but she hadn't gone to sell it. She told herself it was because she was busy, but really she wasn't ready to sever that last connection to Vincent. On Thursday evening, everything changed. Emma was closing up the diner. Rosie had left early for a doctor's appointment, when a well-dressed man entered just before she could lock the door. He was in his 50s with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sorry, we're closed," Emma said politely. "I know. I'm not here for food." The man's smile widened. "I'm here to ask you some questions about a mutual acquaintance." Every warning Vincent had given her suddenly felt very real. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. A man came here last week. Dark hair, blue eyes, probably bleeding. You helped him." The man took a step closer and Emma instinctively backed up. "I need to know what he said to you, where he went, who else he's been in contact with. I don't know anyone like that." "Don't lie to me, Miss Clark." The use of her name sent ice through her veins. "We know he was here. We have witnesses who saw you with him. I'm giving you the opportunity to cooperate before things become unpleasant." Emma's hand moved to her pocket, fingers closing around the card Vincent had given her. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I'll leave when you give me answers." The man moved closer and Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She was alone in the diner, the street outside dark and empty. Her phone was in her other pocket, but she'd have to take her hand off the card to reach it. Then the door chimed and Vincent walked in. He moved with fluid purpose, positioning himself between Emma and the other man before anyone could react. "Carmine. I thought I smelled something rotten." The silver-haired man, Carmine, took a step back, his confident demeanor cracking slightly. "Vincent, we were just having a conversation." "No, you were threatening someone under my protection. That's different." Vincent's voice was calm, almost pleasant, but there was steel underneath. "Emma, are you all right?" "Yes," Emma managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Good. Why don't you go wait in the back office? I need to have a word with my friend here." Emma wanted to argue, to insist she could handle this herself, but the look in Vincent's eyes told her this wasn't the time. She backed toward the office, keeping both men in sight until she could slip through the door. From inside the office, she could hear their voices but not the words. Vincent's tone remained steady, controlled. Carmine's grew progressively more defensive, then angry, then something that might have been afraid. After what felt like hours but was probably only 5 minutes, the conversation ended. The door opened and Vincent appeared. He's gone. Marcus is making sure he leaves the area and doesn't come back. Who was he? Emma asked, still pressed against the far wall of the office. His name is Carmine Zanetti. He works for a family that's in competition with my business interests. Vincent ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of stress she'd seen from him. I'm sorry, Emma. I'd hoped my warning would be enough to keep them away from you. I underestimated how desperate they've become. What did he want? Information about my whereabouts, my contacts, my vulnerabilities. Vincent's eyes met hers. He thinks you're important to me, which makes you valuable to them. Am I? The question slipped out before Emma could stop it. Important to you? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Yes. Which is exactly why you need to stay away from me. You came here tonight. You protected me. That's not staying away. No, it's not. He smiled ruefully. I'm not very good at following my own advice, apparently. Emma pushed off from the wall, her fear transmuting into something else. Anger, maybe. Or frustration. This is my life, Vincent. My choice. You don't get to decide what's good for me and what isn't. I'm trying to keep you safe by making me a target, because that's what happened. That man knew my name. He knew where I worked. He knew I helped you. Emma's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. You want to protect me? Then tell me the truth, all of it. Who are you really? What do you do? Why are people trying to hurt you? Vincent studied her for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Then he nodded slowly. All right, but not here. Let me take you home. Make sure you're secure, and then I'll tell you everything. You deserve that much. Marcus drove them to Emma's apartment in silence. Vincent sat in the back seat beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him but careful not to touch. Emma found herself hyper-aware of his presence, the way he kept checking the side mirrors, the tension in his shoulders that never quite relaxed, the way his hand stayed near his jacket pocket as if ready to reach for something. Danny's home, Emma said as they pulled up to her building. My brother, he's been sick. That's why I needed money. Why your watch was so valuable, Vincent finished. I understand. Family comes first. Always. Inside the apartment, Danny was awake on the couch, his eyes widening as Emma entered, followed by Vincent and Marcus. Em? Want to explain why you've brought home 2 guys who look like they stepped out of a mob movie? It's a long story. Emma set down her bag and turned to Vincent. This is my brother, Danny. Danny, this is Vincent Romano and his associate, Marcus. Danny's eyes flicked between them, his quick mind clearly processing information at high speed. Romano, as in the Romano family? Holy, Emma, what have you gotten yourself into? You know who I am, Vincent said, not quite a question. I read the news. I watched documentaries. The Romano family controls half of Brooklyn's various business interests. Danny struggled to sit up, his protective instincts clearly fighting with his weakened body. Emma, these are not the kind of people you want to be friends with. I know, Emma said quietly, but I helped Vincent when he was hurt, and now apparently, that's made things complicated. Vincent stepped forward, his hands visible and non-threatening. Danny, I understand your concern. If I had a sister, I'd feel the same way. But I need you to know that Emma is under my protection. No one will hurt her. I give you my word. Forgive me if I don't find the word of a crime boss particularly comforting. Danny shot back, but there was more fear than anger in his voice. Danny, it's okay, Emma intervened. Vincent's here to explain everything, to give me the truth about what's going on. I asked him to. Marcus cleared his throat. Mr. Romano, I'll wait outside. Keep the perimeter secure. After Marcus left, the 3 of them sat in awkward silence for a moment. Finally, Vincent spoke. Emma, if you'd prefer to have this conversation in private, no. Danny deserves to hear this too. He's already involved just by being related to me. Emma sat on the couch beside her brother, drawing strength from his presence. So tell us the truth. Vincent settled into the armchair across from them, looking strangely at ease despite the circumstances. My family has been involved in certain unconventional business operations in New York for 3 generations. We provide services that exist in legal gray areas. We settle disputes that can't be handled through official channels. We protect people and businesses that need protection from threats the police can't or won't address. You're organized crime, Danny said flatly. We're entrepreneurs operating outside traditional legal frameworks, Vincent countered. But yes, if you want to use that term, it's not entirely inaccurate. And the Zanetti family? Emma asked. Competitors. They want to expand their territory, and my family's operations are in their way. There's been tension between us for years. It recently escalated. Vincent's jaw tightened. That's why I was injured when I came to your diner. I'd been at a meeting that was supposed to be peaceful. It wasn't. They tried to hurt you, Emma said, the pieces clicking together. They tried to end me, Vincent corrected. But I was fortunate. I got away. And then I was even more fortunate to stumble into a diner run by a woman with medical training and a kind heart. Danny leaned forward. Why didn't you just go to a hospital? Call your own people? Because I wasn't sure who to trust in that moment. The attack happened in a location only a handful of people knew about. Someone from my organization gave that information to the Zanettis. Vincent's voice hardened. I needed time to figure out who before I reached out to anyone in my circle. And did you? Emma asked. Figure out who? Yes. The situation has been handled. Vincent's tone made it clear he wouldn't elaborate. But in the process, the Zanettis learned that I'd received help from someone outside my organization. They've been trying to find you ever since. Emma felt cold. To hurt me? To use you? To get information? To draw me out? Vincent met her eyes. They think you're someone I care about, which makes you leverage. Are they right? Danny asked quietly. Do you care about her? The question hung in the air. Vincent was silent for a long moment, and Emma found herself holding her breath. I barely know your sister, Vincent said finally. But yes, I care what happens to her, because she saved my life when she had every reason not to, because she saw someone in need and helped them without asking for anything in return. In my world, that kind of goodness is rare enough to be worth protecting. So what happens now? Emma asked. I can't have a bodyguard forever. I can't live looking over my shoulder. No, you can't. Vincent stood, pacing to the window to look out at the street below, which is why I've arranged for a meeting with the Zanetti family, a formal sit-down where we establish clear boundaries and rules of engagement. That sounds dangerous, Danny said. It is, but necessary. I'm going to make it clear that you're not involved in our business, that you're simply a civilian who rendered medical assistance, and that any action taken against you will be considered a direct attack on my family. Vincent turned back to face them. In our world, those kinds of declarations are taken seriously. Once I make it official, you should be safe. Should be, Emma repeated. Not will be. I can't guarantee anything in this life, Emma, but I can make it extremely unwise for anyone to threaten you. Vincent pulled out his phone and showed her something on the screen, a news article. This is a business the Zanettis own. Last week, the health inspector found several violations. The week before, the fire marshal discovered serious safety hazards. These are small warnings. They understand what larger warnings would look like. Danny whistled low. You're showing us that you can destroy their business. I'm showing you that I have resources to protect what's mine. Vincent put the phone away. Emma, I know this isn't the life you wanted. You deserve normal, safe, simple, but circumstances have made that impossible right now. All I can do is minimize the damage and keep you as secure as possible until the situation stabilizes. Emma processed this, her mind spinning. And the meeting with the Zanettis? When is it? Tomorrow night. I want to be there. Both Vincent and Danny spoke at once. Absolutely not. Emma, these are not people you want to be in a room with, Vincent said firmly. But I'm already in this situation. I'm already a target. Emma stood, facing Vincent directly. If this meeting is about me, about establishing that I'm not a threat or an asset or whatever they think I am, then I should be there. I should speak for myself. It's too dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous. You said it yourself, they already know who I am. They already came to my workplace and threatened me. What's the difference between them seeing me tomorrow or tracking me down next week? Emma's voice was steady despite her fear. Besides, if I'm there, they can see for themselves that I'm just a waitress. Nobody important. Not worth their time. Vincent studied her face, and she could see the conflict in his expression. Finally, he shook his head. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish. You said that before. Have you decided which yet? No, but I'm starting to suspect you're both. Vincent sighed. If, and this is a very big if, you were to attend this meeting, you'd follow my instructions exactly. You'd stay by my side. You'd speak only when spoken to, and at the first sign of trouble, Marcus would get you out of there immediately. Agreed. Emma, this is insane, Danny protested. You can't go to some kind of crime family meeting. Danny, I'm already involved. I might as well have some control over how this plays out. Emma squeezed her brother's hand. Besides, Vincent will be there. Marcus will be there, I'll be safe. As safe as possible under the circumstances, Vincent corrected. Danny, I understand your objections. If I could keep your sister completely out of this, I would. But she's right. The Zanettis already know about her. This meeting is the best chance to neutralize her as a person of interest. Danny looked between them, clearly unhappy but recognizing the logic. Fine. But Vincent? If anything happens to her, I don't care how powerful your family is. I will make it my life's mission to make you regret it. Vincent smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. I would expect nothing less. You're a good brother, Danny. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparation and mounting anxiety. Vincent insisted that Emma take the day off from the diner. He'd already spoken to Rosie, apparently, and compensated her for the lost labor. Emma wasn't sure whether to be annoyed at his high-handedness or grateful for the consideration. Marcus arrived at her apartment at noon with bags from expensive stores Emma had never shopped in. Mr. Romano thought you might need appropriate attire for this evening. Inside the bags were several outfits. Elegant, professional, the kind of clothes that commanded respect without being flashy. Emma ran her hands over the fabric of a navy blue dress, surprised by the quality. He has good taste, she admitted. Mr. Romano is very observant, Marcus replied. He notices details. Like what size dress I wear, like the fact that you carry yourself with dignity despite your circumstances, that you're strong but not harsh, that you need clothes that reflect who you are, not who someone thinks you should be. Marcus set down the bags. He wants you to feel confident tonight. Emma looked at the clothes again, seeing them differently now. This wasn't about making her into something she wasn't. It was about giving her armor for a battle she hadn't asked to fight. Tell him thank you. Tell him yourself. He'll be here at 7 to pick you up. The afternoon was spent getting ready, not just physically, but mentally. Danny helped her choose the navy dress and a pair of elegant but practical shoes. He even styled her hair, pulling it back in a way that was both professional and soft. You look beautiful, he said when they were done, and terrifying, like someone who could run a boardroom or a battlefield. I'm just a waitress going to a meeting. No, Em. Tonight you're a woman taking control of her own story. Danny hugged her carefully, mindful of his weakness. Be safe, be smart. And remember, you don't owe these people anything. Not explanations, not apologies, nothing. When Vincent arrived at 7, Emma was ready. He stood in her doorway in a charcoal suit, looking every inch the powerful man he was, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. You look, Vincent paused, seeming to search for words. You look like someone who belongs in any room she enters, thanks to your impeccable shopping skills. The clothes are just clothes. You're what makes them significant. Vincent offered his arm. Are you ready? Emma took a deep breath and placed her hand in the crook of his elbow. As ready as I'll ever be. In the car, Vincent briefed her on what to expect. The meeting will take place at a restaurant in Manhattan, neutral territory. The Zanettis will have their leadership present. Carmine, whom you've met, and his uncle Lorenzo, who runs their family. I'll have Marcus and 2 other associates with me. What do I need to do? Be yourself. Answer any questions truthfully but briefly. Don't volunteer information. Vincent's hand covered hers where it rested on the seat between them. And Emma? If anything feels wrong, if you get scared, you tell me immediately. Your safety is more important than any negotiation. The restaurant was in Midtown, upscale, dimly lit, the kind of place where deals were made and power was brokered. As they entered, Emma noticed how the staff reacted to Vincent, respect tinged with wariness. This was a man who was known, feared, obeyed. A private room had been reserved in the back. As they approached, Emma saw Marcus and 2 other large men standing outside the door. Inside, she could glimpse several men in expensive suits seated around a table. Vincent paused just before the door. Last chance to change your mind. Emma squeezed his hand. Let's do this. They entered together, and every eye in the room turned to assess her. Emma lifted her chin and met their gazes steadily, channeling every ounce of confidence she could muster. An older man at the head of the table, Lorenzo Zanetti, she assumed, smiled. Vincent, thank you for agreeing to meet, and this must be the famous Emma Clark. This is Emma, Vincent confirmed, pulling out a chair for her. She's here at her own insistence, to make clear her position in all of this. Brave girl. Lorenzo's eyes were calculating. Or foolish, I haven't decided which. Emma smiled despite her nerves. That seems to be a common question. Carmine, seated to Lorenzo's right, leaned forward. You understand why you're here, Miss Clark? Why we've taken an interest in you? Because I helped Vincent when he was injured and you think that makes me connected to his organization? Emma's voice was steady. But you're wrong. I'm a waitress who rendered first aid to someone in need, that's all. Is it? Lorenzo asked. Because our sources tell us Vincent has placed you under protection, has provided financial assistance, has taken considerable interest in your welfare. That doesn't sound like just a waitress to me. Vincent's hand moved to Emma's shoulder, a gesture of support but also warning. Emma saved my life. The protection and assistance are expressions of gratitude, nothing more. She has no knowledge of my business operations, no involvement in family matters, and no value as leverage or intelligence. Then why is she here? Carmine challenged. Because I wanted to make it clear that I'm not hiding from you. Emma interjected before Vincent could respond. I'm not a secret Vincent is keeping or an asset he's protecting for strategic reasons. I'm just a person who made a choice to help someone, and I'm asking you to respect that I had no ulterior motive. The room was silent for a moment. Lorenzo studied Emma with renewed interest. You have courage, Miss Clark. I respect that. But courage doesn't change facts. You are connected to Vincent now, whether you intended it or not. Then let me disconnect, Emma said. Let me go back to my life. I won't speak of what happened. I won't be involved in any disputes between your families. I'll forget I ever met any of you. Can you? Lorenzo asked softly. Can you really forget? Emma thought of Vincent's blue eyes, his unexpected gentleness, the way he'd made her feel seen. If that's what it takes to keep my brother safe, then yes. I can forget anything. Vincent's hand tightened on her shoulder, and she wondered if she'd hurt him with that declaration. But this wasn't about feelings or connections. This was about survival. Lorenzo exchanged glances with Carmine and the other men at the table. Finally, he nodded slowly. Very well. Miss Clark, your honesty is appreciated. We will consider you a neutral party in this matter. No harm will come to you or your brother as long as you maintain that neutrality. Meaning? Vincent asked, his tone sharp. Meaning she doesn't work for you, doesn't provide information to you, doesn't involve herself in any way with your operations. Lorenzo smiled. Surely that's acceptable. After all, you've both insisted she's just a civilian who helped an injured man. It was a trap, Emma realized. A way to force Vincent to keep his distance from her. And from the tension she felt in Vincent's hand, he recognized it too. Acceptable, Vincent said after a long pause. Emma remains uninvolved. We have an agreement. Excellent. Lorenzo stood, signaling the meeting was over. Miss Clark, it was enlightening to meet you. I hope we won't need to meet again. That makes two of us, Emma replied honestly. As they left the restaurant, Emma felt the weight of what had just happened settling over her. She'd successfully neutralized herself as a threat, but in doing so, she'd also severed any connection to Vincent. The agreement meant he couldn't protect her, couldn't involve her in his life, couldn't. That was well done, Vincent said quietly as they reached the car. You were perfect in there. I just told the truth. You told the truth in a way that saved both of us. Vincent helped her into the car, then slid in beside her. As Marcus pulled away from the curb, Vincent finally looked at her. Emma, what you said about forgetting was necessary, Emma interrupted, to keep Danny safe, to end this situation. I know, but Vincent trailed off, seeming unsure how to continue. I want you to know that even though we've agreed you're not involved in my world, if you ever need anything at all, you can still call me. The agreement says you won't work for me or provide me with information. It doesn't say I can't be a friend who happens to have resources. Vincent's smile was sad. I know we barely know each other, but Emma, these past few days, you've reminded me that there's more to life than the business I'm in. You've shown me kindness when you had every reason to walk away. That's not something I'll forget, even if you do. Emma felt something crack inside her chest, a barrier she'd built to protect herself from getting too close to this dangerous, complicated man. I don't want to forget, she admitted quietly, but I don't see how we can be anything to each other. We live in different worlds. We do. Vincent took her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. But maybe different worlds can touch sometimes, just at the edges. The car arrived at Emma's apartment building too soon. As Vincent walked her to her door, Emma found herself wanting to slow time, to stretch out these last moments before they became strangers again. "Thank you," she said at her door, "for protecting me, for being honest, for everything." "Emma." Vincent reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "If you ever change your mind about forgetting, you know how to find me." Then he was gone, walking back to the car where Marcus waited. Emma stood in her doorway, watching the vehicle disappear into the night, and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Inside, Danny was waiting anxiously. "How did it go?" "It went well. We're safe. The Zanettis agreed to leave us alone." Emma collapsed onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. "It's over." "Then why do you look like you just lost something important?" Emma didn't answer because she couldn't find the words to explain that sometimes the safest choice was also the saddest one. 3 weeks after the meeting, Emma couldn't forget Vincent. She'd returned to her routine, working, caring for Danny, but felt empty inside. His absence haunted her. Then Vincent called. Marcus's 12-year-old daughter Sophia needed a heart transplant urgently, but wasn't high enough on the waiting list. "She's running out of time," Vincent said desperately. "Marcus thinks you can help." At the hospital, Emma met brave Sophia and her terrified father. She researched transplant protocols, found precedent cases, and approached Dr. Morrison with evidence, carefully hiding Vincent's connection. Days later, Dr. Morrison called. The board approved it. Sophia's moved to top priority. Emma went to Vincent's office. "I've been miserable without you," she admitted. "I want to try this, us, despite everything." Vincent pulled her close. "Are you sure? My world is dangerous." "I'm sure. I choose you." They kissed, and Emma knew. Some risks were worth taking. Love had found her in the most unexpected place, and she wasn't letting it go. For 2 months, Emma and Vincent kept their relationship secret. Stolen moments, careful meetings, growing deeper in love while hiding from the Zanettis. Then everything changed. Carmine discovered them together. "You violated the agreement," he threatened. "She's involved now." Vincent faced a choice: protect his empire or protect Emma. He chose her. At a tense final meeting, Vincent negotiated peace. "I'm stepping back from certain operations. Emma stays untouched. That's non-negotiable." He leveraged evidence against corrupt officials working with the Zanettis, forcing a stalemate. Lorenzo agreed reluctantly. "You're weak for her, Romano." "No," Vincent replied. "She makes me stronger." 6 months later, Sophia received her transplant successfully. Emma re-enrolled in nursing school. Dr. Morrison had offered a scholarship. Danny was in remission. At the diner where they first met, Vincent asked, "Any regrets?" Emma smiled. "Every day, and I'd choose you again every single time." Some love stories begin with danger. The best ones transform it into something beautiful.